This morning, the confession four grieving families have been waiting for.
Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes.
In a chilling moment in a Boise courtroom Wednesday, 30-year-old Bryan Kohberger repeatedly pleading guilty to the murders of four University of Idaho students as the families of the victims looked on, some sobbing.
Did you, on November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being?
Yes.
Kaylee Gonzalez?
Yes.
Xana Kernodle?
Yes.
Ethan Chapin?
Yes.
Did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
The plea, part of an 11th-hour deal reached by prosecutors and Kohberger's defense team just weeks before his trial was set to begin. Each count carrying a sentence of life in prison with no possibility to appeal while keeping the death penalty off the table.
I, like most everyone else, learned of this plea agreement Monday afternoon and had no inkling of it beforehand.
As Kohberger sat quietly, prosecutors laid out the evidence they'd planned to present at trial, saying his cell phone pinged near the crime scene 23 times in the months before the murders, and that his car was seen on video racing away from the house on the night of the crime.
Defendant entered the residence, went to the third floor, and with a knife, killed Madison Mogen and Kaylee Gonzalez.
They say Kohberger then ran into Xana Kernodle, who was awake, and killed her and her sleeping boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, before going home and taking this selfie with a thumbs up. The prosecutors also pointing to key evidence, a DNA sample matching DNA on the knife sheath found next to Mogen's body. Kaylee Gonzalez's father, who refused to enter the courtroom, says by accepting a plea deal, the prosecutor denied his daughter justice.
We didn't agree on anything. He only negotiated with the murder of our children.
The family of Madison Mogen voicing their support for the deal in a statement read by their lawyer.
We turn from darkness and uncertainty of the legal process to the light of the future. We have closure.
Now, a sentencing hearing has been set for July 23rd. We expect Kohberger will be sentenced to life without parole. And at that hearing, the families of the victims will be able to address Kohberger directly and read victim impact statements. And notably, Kohberger will look different at that hearing, likely wearing a prison jumpsuit, as the judge says he has now waived his right to wear civilian clothes in court. Guys.
Liz, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, joining us back here at the table is NBC News legal analyst and criminal defense attorney Danny Cevallos. Danny, you listened to the prosecution lay out some of the evidence that would have come out trial there in court yesterday. It's pretty powerful. We thought they had a strong case going in here to trial just weeks away, but did you hear anything from the prosecution that made you think, okay, this is why they struck this deal right now?
Sure. I mean, we knew about a lot of this evidence. They had DNA evidence. They had GPS evidence. They had an eyewitness. A lot of this was known. And, Laura, as you know, a lot of this case, as much as there were probably hundreds of motions filed by both sides, much of this case was carried on in sealed documents, kept from the public's view. Presumably, after sentencing, those will be released. And we may find there's even more evidence than we imagined. One of the things that stood out to me, and we talked about this, was that the prosecution said, well, you know, Kohberger didn't specifically intend to kill these four victims when he came in. And a lot of people, I think, maybe raised their eyebrows at that. But really all they needed for the burglary was the intent to commit a general felony in there, murder in the general, not specifically targeting these victims. Because there isn't any evidence that he targeted these four individuals specifically and before he entered the home. But more than enough on the record for what we call a factual basis for Judge Hippler to accept the plea.
So as we said, sentencing set for July 23rd, of course, an opportunity for the families to address Kohberger directly, also an opportunity perhaps for Kohberger to speak himself. But there remain questions that are unanswered to this point. Where is the murder weapon and why did he do it?
Yeah, and likely we may never find out, because even though Kohberger has a right to speak, to allocute at his sentencing hearing, he doesn't have to. And often, you know, as a defense attorney, often I decide that it's probably better for the lawyers to do the talking. So more likely than not, we may never hear from Kohberger, at least at his sentencing, about why he did this. Maybe in the coming years he will speak, but all likelihood at sentencing, it's a foregone conclusion anyway. Not much point in the client getting up and speaking.
Yeah, and of course that gag order is going to get lifted once sentencing happens, so we might hear a lot more details. Danny, thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can catch the Today Show every morning on NBC or take Today when you're on the go. Just follow the Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.